Vietnam is the most football-obsessed nation in Asia, and yet for decades, their national stadium couldn't even keep its grass alive, forcing the national team to play home matches in borrowed cities. But as Vietnam was patching up a crumbling venue, they were secretly planning to build the largest stadium in human history. A 135,000-seat giant, inspired by a 2,500-year-old cultural symbol. Built at the center of a multi-billion-dollar sports city with a price tag of over $35 billion. So the question is simple, can Vietnam actually pull this off? This is the full story of Trong Dong. Let's get into it. Vietnam might be the most football-obsessed country in Asia. According to Nielsen research, 75% of the population identifies as football fans, the highest percentage anywhere on the continent. But that passion hides a problem. For a nation that lives and breathes the game, the infrastructure has never matched it. For more than 2 decades, the country relied on My Jinj National Stadium. Since opening in 2003, it hosted everything. World Cup qualifiers, regional finals, the biggest matches in Vietnamese football history. But behind the scenes, the reality was far less impressive. The pitch deteriorated so badly that Australian journalists once compared it to a cow pasture during a World Cup qualifier. In a friendly against Borussia Dortmund, a goalpost collapsed mid-game. And in 2024, the situation reached a new low. The stadium couldn't even be registered as the national team's home ground for the ASEAN Cup because the grass failed to meet basic international standards, forcing the team to play a home match in another city entirely. The problems ran deeper than just the pitch. The stadium had built up debts it couldn't repay. Renovation funds became tied to allegations of corruption, and after more than 20 years of use, it had reached a point where fixing it properly was no longer realistic. But My Jinj was only part of the issue. Across the entire country, there wasn't a single stadium larger than 40,000 seats. Hang Jai Stadium was nearly 60 years old. Thong Nha in Ho Chi Minh City held just 14,400 people. For one of the most football-passionate nations in Asia, the gap between demand and infrastructure was impossible to ignore. And that gap was costing Vietnam where it hurt most, on the international stage. The only major continental tournament the country had ever hosted was the 2007 AFC Asian Cup. Nearly 2 decades ago, without modern world-class venues, there is simply nothing to bid with. Meanwhile, the rest of the region wasn't standing still. Singapore built a brand new 55,000-seat national stadium with a retractable roof in 2014. Indonesia opened the Jakarta International Stadium in 2022 with a capacity of 82,000, the largest football-specific stadium in all of Asia. Every major country in the region was building bigger, newer, and more ambitious. Vietnam wasn't just falling behind, it was being left behind entirely. Then came a turning point. In 2022, the national team reached the final round of Asian World Cup qualification for the very first time in its history, a milestone moment for Vietnamese football. But the stadium hosting those historic matches still couldn't guarantee a playable pitch. The team had simply outgrown everything around it. Plans for a new national stadium had existed since the late 1990s. Proposals, studies, discussions, but nothing ever moved forward. Now, with the team improving, the fan base growing, and the entire region accelerating ahead, the pressure could no longer be ignored. This time, the answer had a name: Trong Dong. In December 2025, authorities approved the planning of a massive new sports complex in Thuong Phuc Commune, around 20 kilometers from Hanoi's city center. After decades of waiting, it was finally happening. Trong Dong Stadium is being designed to hold 135,000 spectators. That is more than Wembley, more than the Maracana, more than the Narendra Modi Stadium in India, which currently holds 132,000 and is recognized as the largest stadium in the world today. And more than the Rungradeo Stadium in North Korea, which holds around 114,000. Trong Dong will pass every single one of them. When it opens, Vietnam will own the title of the largest stadium ever built in human history. But before you even get to the numbers, there is the name. And the name tells you everything about what this project really is. Trong Dong translates to bronze drum. The Dong Sun bronze drum is one of the most sacred symbols in Vietnamese history, an artifact over 2,500 years old that represents community, strength, and national identity. The architects didn't just borrow the name, they built the entire stadium around it. Viewed from above, the structure looks like a giant drum rising from the earth. The facade is decorated with blackbird motifs, a legendary creature from Vietnamese mythology that symbolizes the very origins of the Vietnamese people. Every single detail of this building is rooted in who Vietnam is and where it came from. This is not a stadium that could belong to any other country. It could only ever be Vietnamese. And then there is the engineering, because what they are planning to build inside this thing is just as remarkable as how it looks from the outside. The roof will be the largest retractable roof ever built on any stadium in the world. Fully automated, covering all 135,000 fans, protecting them from Hanoi's brutal summer heat and monsoon rains while keeping the atmosphere of an open stadium alive underneath it. And the pitch works the same way. The entire grass surface is retractable. The whole thing can be swapped out in just 6 to 10 hours. That means a FIFA standard football match on one day and a full-scale concert the next, with the turf completely preserved in between. One decision the designers made is worth paying attention to. Despite the record-breaking size, Trong Dong will have no athletics track. In almost every stadium of this scale around the world, a running track sits between the fans and the pitch, pushing supporters further from the action. Trong Dong removes that entirely. 135,000 people, all of them as close to the football as the architecture will allow. The atmosphere that creates inside a bowl that size is genuinely hard to imagine. And the stadium is only the beginning of the story. Vietnam is not just building a venue, it is building an entirely new chapter for the city of Hanoi around it. Trong Dong sits at the heart of a project called the Hanoi Olympic Sports City, a development covering over 9,000 hectares, planned to house 750,000 residents, with hotels, hospitals, shopping centers, research facilities, and an entirely new transport network, all built as part of the same vision. The total investment for the whole project is estimated at over $35 billion. A district designed from scratch, with a stadium at its center, built to one day host events as large as the Asian Games or the Olympic Games. The target completion date for Trong Dong Stadium is August 2028. Less than 3 years from the moment ground was broken. For a project of this scale and ambition, that timeline is almost as extraordinary as the stadium itself. And whether Vietnam can actually pull it off, that is exactly where this story gets complicated. Vietnam broke ground on December 19, 2025. The Prime Minister attended the ceremony. Cameras broadcast it nationally, and for a moment, it looked like the start of a new era in Vietnamese infrastructure. But what happened after the cameras left told a very different story. Because when construction officially began, large parts of the land the stadium needed had not even been cleared. As late as March 2026, 3 months after groundbreaking, authorities were still negotiating with hundreds of families, processing compensation, and managing relocation across multiple villages. In one section alone, 269 households were affected across nearly 79 hectares. The deadline for full land clearance was set for June 30th, 2026. That means 6 months into construction, the project was still preparing the ground it was supposed to be built on. And that detail alone changes how you see the entire timeline. A stadium like SoFi Stadium, 70,000 seats, took nearly 4 years to complete under one of the most advanced construction environments in the world. Trong Dong is more than double that capacity, with a retractable roof, a fully movable pitch system, and an entire transport network being built alongside it. Yet the target remains August 2028. With land still being cleared months after construction began, that schedule sits right on the edge of what modern stadium construction has ever attempted. Then comes the scale of the investment. The total cost of the wider development is estimated at over $35 billion, driven largely by Vingroup. To put that into perspective, one of the most controversial stadium projects in the United States, the new Buffalo Bills Stadium, is valued at just a fraction of that amount. This project is in an entirely different category of financial exposure. And while supporters call it transformative, analysts have quietly raised concerns about long-term economic pressure and whether such massive capital concentration can sustain itself over time. But the biggest question has nothing to do with construction or cost. It is about demand. Vietnam has never qualified for a FIFA World Cup. Domestic league attendances remain modest compared to global standards. And yet this stadium is designed to hold 135,000 people, a scale that demands not just occasional events, but constant global-level usage. Because building the largest stadium in the world is one challenge, keeping it full week after week is something completely different. To address that, the project is designed as more than a football venue. The retractable roof and pitch allow it to switch from sport to concert mode within hours. The vision is that it becomes a multi-purpose global arena, capable of hosting everything from football finals to international concerts and large-scale ceremonies. Supporters believe Vietnam's 100 million population and football culture will eventually match that scale. And maybe they are right. Vietnam has surprised the world before. Or maybe the doubters are right, and the most ambitious stadium ever conceived becomes the most expensive lesson the sport has ever seen. Either way, the bronze drum is rising. And by August 2028, everyone will have their answer. So, do you think Vietnam can pull this off? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more.